In fact, when we focus on the fact that we are in the era of social media, information, or for that matter, a lot of apps, what about cybersecurity? A much needed session, and we have with us an internationally recognized cybersecurity mentor who's presently tenanting with the prestigious appointment of National Cybersecurity Coordinator in the National Security Council Secretariat of India. Under his stewardship, and let me bring this to your attention, in fact, under his stewardship, the nation has risen from 47th to 10th position in the global cybersecurity rating of 2020 by UN. So first up, can we have a round of applause, because that's the kind of leadership that we're looking forward to. We have with us none other than AVSM, VSM, Lieutenant General Retired Dr. Rajesh Pant. Please put your hands together to please help me welcome on stage none other than Lieutenant General Retired Dr. Rajesh Pant.
Thank you, Kavya, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm told I'm between you and lunch, so I'll try and be as brief as possible. The previous speaker, Shri Dinesh, gave an excellent talk. The only thing that scared me was when he said the life expectancy was 72. So while it is good for the 22-year-olds, but for guys like us, you set us thinking. But thanks to Shri Shubho Roy and my friend Satyendra Verma for having me here on a very busy Monday. IAMAI is a palindrome. You know what a palindrome is? It's a word that reads the same from both the sides. And I was just looking at the logo and I said, if I just put some spaces in between, so it also becomes I am artificial intelligence. So various connotations are there, but thank you very much for having me here. Let me start from a sort of a systems view, a global perspective on how we see things in cyberspace. As far as the World Economic Forum is concerned, it has consistently been saying that cybercrime is the biggest man-made risk to the economic progress of nations. And last year, the total loss is estimated to be $6 trillion US. So that is the scale at which we are talking of. And when I see a global perspective and a systems view, or as they say today, a Chinese balloon view, so we find that there is a cyberspace which is splitting. It's like an egg that is, about to hatch or something. And why I see that from top is because you're following the geopolitics that is happening, and because of the war in Eastern Europe and the weaponization of technology, the weaponization of interdependence, which some nations have created, which is causing a split. And those of you who are keeping a track of the internet architecture should also be aware that our neighbor in the north has applied to the International Telecommunications Union for a new internet protocol. They have also applied for a global initiative on data security and various other aspects. The Russians have done this exercise that in case the pipe get cut, how do their .ru domain continue to function? Because everything is revolving around the internet today, and those of you who are the startups and the entrepreneurs, I'm sure, will understand the importance of the internet. And the architecture of the internet, for those who are not aware, that when I type google.com, after that .com, there's a .null, which is not written, but it is understood by the system. And the first DNS server to which your request goes is called the root server. And that is where it tells you, okay, this is the IP address of the .com, and from .com it tells you which is the IP address of the Google 8.8.8, etc. And that is what is the recursive domain naming system, and that's how the process works when you address the URLs in the internet. Out of 13 root servers, 11 are in the United States, 1 is in Europe, and 1 is in Japan, which is what is peeving the Eastern Bloc of Russia, China, Iran, etc. and how do they continue to function in case, as I said, the pipe gets cut. The Chinese have a golden shield which they have created. They have their own apps. You're aware of that, Weibo, Baidu, etc. That's how they've taken care of their walled garden, as they say. The Russians, I have told you. We are also examining as to how to cater for this sort of a situation. We have instances of the root that means copies of that server. There are about 26 of them inside the nation where we have the data that would last definitely for about a week or so. And then there are, we made methodologies as to how we continue to function after that. So that is as far as the internet architecture is concerned, that there is a concept of splinter net that is today being spoken of, that in case this entire architecture gets split, then how do we continue to function? Because of this, this splinter net and this lack of cooperation between nations, even in the ICANN and the IETF is the Internet Engineering Task Force that handles the architecture, the criminals are taking advantage of it. And why they're taking advantage of it? Because as of today, there are no international laws and regulations, if I may say so, which help the agencies for solving cyber crimes. So there is a mutual legal assistance treaty. We've tried that. It takes too long. There is a letters rogatory. I remember a City Union Bank case in Chennai some years back where they lost about 100 crores. We knew where the money had gone. We knew where the bank had gone. But the whole process where you start from the FIR to the judge and then it comes to Delhi, then it goes back. Finally, the judge gives the LOR. We went to them after 120 days. They said, sorry, the international rule says 90 days. And 91st day, that guy had taken out the money. So there was a very good manual called the Tallinn Manual 1.0, 2.0. Tallinn is the capital of Estonia. Some of you may be aware. And a very good document had come out from there which gave out the definitions of what is a cyber crime, what is a cyber weapon, etc., what are the thresholds. But today nobody is even talking of the Tallinn Manual. And as if that was not enough, it took the United Nations 20 years to come out with 11 non-binding norms of responsible behavior by states in cyberspace. Non-binding norms. It took them 20 years. The United Nations group of government experts was created in 2002, and last year their recommendations were approved by the UN General Assembly, and I was an observer in the UNGG, which is why I'm telling you that you add a word like trusted, so they say, what do you mean by trust? And this was a group of 25 countries. There's another larger group of 193 countries called the Open-Ended Working Group. Even they have now agreed to the 11 non-binding norms. So, SplinterNet, lack of regulations, and as if that was not enough, the lack of attribution. If you come to our National Informatics Center in Shastri Park, they've got a huge global map which shows the last IP address from where the attacks are coming into our nation. 40% of those attacks emanate from the United States of America, mainland. That is what the map shows. But that is not the case, because that is only showing you the last IP address. They come from 2 to 3 hops. From there, he goes to Netherlands backwards, and then from wherever he is operating. And he's hired a virtual machine in any data center of the US, because they take advantage of countries which are democracies, which have strong privacy laws, and he knows that if I ask for the details of that, whoever has hired that VPS, I may not get the details. So this is the international scenario in which all of us are operating as far as cyberspace is concerned, and the end result is that it is favoring the criminal. As of today, it is favoring the cyber criminal, and all the mafia gangs today, whether it is individuals, whether it is the mafia gangs, whether it is the non-state or the state-backed actors, are taking advantage of the scenario. So this is where all of you and me are operating. So what are we doing about it? One of the things we are doing at the international level is that if the criminals have got together, then at least the good guys and the coalition of the willing, like-minded nations are getting together. When I say criminals have got together, what I mean is that crime as a service is being offered in the dark web today. So whereas earlier a small group of people used to conduct ransomware attacks, Today, they have combined together and they are offering it as a service. So you have somebody who's an access broker. An access broker is already sitting in various enterprises and companies. He's already sitting inside there. He's hacked into them. He's sitting inside there. He also knows which are the companies which have taken cyber insurance and how much insurance they have taken. So he tells you that from this company, you can get so many millions of dollars. And then there is, of course, the crypto expert, the exfiltration expert. In fact, you'll be surprised to know that some of these groups have a negotiator. It's a proper enterprise. So when you have a ransomware attack, you find somebody says, I'm a negotiator. So why, if you don't pay 4 million, you want to pay 3.5 million? So he negotiates between the two parties. So it's a proper business enterprise that is functioning by these criminals. So at least the like-minded nations like ours, and the US and Australia and various other nations in EU, we've got together and we've created an international counter-ransomware task force where we are going after them. You may have heard recently some names of perpetrators that were published. They have been put under sanctions. You may have also heard of the famous Hive case. Hive is a HIVE, that's a ransomware group. And full credit to the Americans and the Netherlands police and Interpol. They were sitting inside the Hive network for 3 months. And wherever the Hive network was doing a ransomware attack, they were taking out the decryption keys. And they saved about $150 million by giving those decryption keys to the companies. And then after 3 months, they went inside and then brought the whole system down. And of course, some arrests have also taken place. So International Counter-Ransomware Task Force has been created. At a national level also, just last month, we have created a National Counter-Ransomware Task Force where everyone has come together. The finance guys are there, the legal guys are there, the incident response, everyone has come together under Ministry of Home Affairs. Some of the other initiatives that we have taken at a national level for crime, we've created the Indian Cybercrime Coordination Center, I4C, under the MHA. It's got 7 verticals of various threat analytics and R&D, etc. And that is what is handling our portal, cybercrime.gov.in. And this is the portal in case, I don't wish that you lose money, but in case anyone loses money by cyber fraud, this is where you have to report. You have to call 1930 as an immediate action and report to cybercrime.gov.in to fill up the other details. Because in 1930 only 5 elements are given so that quickly we can block the money and stop the transfers, etc. But in cybercrime portal, there are many more actions required and you get a registration number, etc. Every day we get 3,500 complaints in our cybercrime portal. And these are the people who are aware that a portal like this exists. I'm sure the number is at least 2 to 3 times of those who are losing money and not aware as to where to report. So this is how we handle cybercrime. For our critical sectors, we have identified 7 critical sectors, including health, transportation, strategic sectors, telecom, power, energy, etc. And for the critical sector protection, we've created an organization called NCIIPC. It's a National Critical Information Infrastructure Protection Center. It's a big organization of almost 580 people, which has a process of finding out what is the critical information infrastructure, what is the protected system, and they're doing a good job. Out of these 7 critical sectors, there are 2 sectors that we've identified as supercritical. One is power and the other is telecom. For the power sector, we have taken all their verticals of power generation, transmission, distribution, grid operations, and even included the renewable energy part of it. And in all these 5 sectors, we have created Security Operations Center, trained the CISOs, issued guidelines, established these basic norms, etc. And their regulator, which is the Central Electricity Authority, is now supervising the entire cybersecurity setup of the power sector. For the telecom sector, some of you may recall that we initiated the National Security Directive for the telecom sector. This was implemented from 15th of June 2021, which stipulates that any product connected to the National Telecom Network of India has to be a trusted product from a trusted source. And what is a trusted product? What is a trusted source? I am the designated authority for that. And we go through an entire process. When we say trusted source, we are talking of the company, the OEM, which creates that equipment. We go into the grandfathers of that company, who are the ultimate beneficiaries, does it have any association with the intelligence organization of that nation, etc. And once we classify it as a trusted source, then we examine the equipment. And we go down to the level of active programmable semiconductors, the silicon. And we see where are the chips coming from, are they also coming from trusted sources as a trusted product. Once we are satisfied, then we say, okay, this is a trusted product, and the telecom service provider then can put this in our system or in their network. This is how the whole system has been going on for last over 1.5 years. I'm told it's been successfully implemented because there have been no disruptions in our telecom network. And this is how we are maintaining that at least definitely 5G onwards, we have trusted products and from trusted sources in our telecom networks. So this is as far as the networks are concerned. When we come to the policy aspect, the existing policy is a 2013 policy, which is being revised now. The government had set up a task force. I am the chairperson of that task force. We have submitted our recommendations for a national cybersecurity strategy of 2023. It is lying in the Prime Minister's office. In fact, he's himself very concerned and very interested that this strategy comes out at the earliest. Last time he went for a G7 summit to Germany, as I recall, he said, I want the presentation of this strategy during the flight, and that was given to him. And that we hope comes out at the earliest, because that is what is covering the entire ecosystem of cybersecurity. And the title of your seminar is basically coming together from the cybersecurity point of view. And this particular strategy, it proposes a whole of a nation approach and something called CBDR. CBDR means common but differentiated responsibility. What does that mean? It means that the individual has a certain responsibility, the business has a certain responsibility, the academia has a certain responsibility, and the government also has a certain responsibility, or rather government probably has a major responsibility. And why we are saying this, everyone has a responsibility, because I mentioned critical sectors earlier. A large portion of the critical sector is with the private sector. And how the cyber attack starts is because he targets one individual with a spear phishing email. After he compromises that individual, he does a lateral movement in that network, then an escalation of privileges, tries to get admin accounts, and then he can weaponize and see either he wants to take away the data, or he wants to conduct a ransomware attack, or he wants to bring the system down. That depends on what he wants. But it starts with one individual. So it is very important for that individual to have good cyber hygiene, personal cyber hygiene. And again, from the enterprise point of view, today with the work from home, they say that there is no perimeter. So there are different ways of protecting yourself from the enterprise point of view. You can have what is called as a zero trust architecture, ZTA, which means that you trust nothing and verify everything. So are you the person who's sitting on the other side, which is the endpoint, what is the computer that you're using? Most companies today have started distributing their own laptops to the companies, because in your home laptop, you might be having an application that may be compromised. So everything is checked. Your applications, your network, your home network, are you coming through the cloud? How are you coming? And then if it is a pure enterprise, then of course there's a classic fort and moat solution, that you have a firewall, you have an intrusion detection system, IPS, Security Operations Center, SIEM, SOAR, orchestration and response, behavior analytics, etc. are there. So that is the pure enterprise solution. So various cyber security solutions exist. So this is what the enterprises have to concentrate on, and it's very important. I'm telling you, if you see what has happened, and things are there in the public domain. Last year, April, we had an attack, a ransomware attack on Oil India Limited at Duliajan in Assam, where their entire Windows environment got encrypted. And today, we have digitalized our functioning in such a great extent that even that truck with the barrels could not move out from their oil facility, oil drilling facility, because the chit, he couldn't generate that chit. Everything was automated. So for 1 week, they were down. Then recently you heard in the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, which is here only in Delhi, as to how they were down for almost a fortnight. because again, they came under a ransomware attack. And a lot of patients queued up outside, and there was a lot of problems with the people and the patients that were there. Then recently in Nagpur, we've had a cyber attack and a group called the Solar Group. Tata Power had come under attack some time back. So the list is endless, and it's much more. I'm just taking some names which are in the public domain. Actually, the numbers are much more. We had last year almost 14 lakh incidents reported to CERT-IN. So CERT-IN is our national CERT, which handles the incident response part. We also have a very big Information Security Education and Awareness Program, ISA program, which is handled by Ministry of Electronics and IT, which is where we bring out all this literature for cybersecurity, and we go to schools and various colleges, etc. So they have a portal. There are a large number of free options available. If you go to the Cyber Swachhata Kendra, csk.gov.in, you will get free bot removal tools which can be utilized. Even in the CERT portal, there are some advisories. And about 2 months back, I was there in a CII function where we released Cyber Suraksha Kavach. That is also a free facility that is available. At a national level, from the regulation point of view, you are aware of various acts that are currently being discussed. The Personal Data Protection Bill, which has been going up and down from 2017 onwards. The non-personal data was added to it. Now it's again come back to PDP bill, and we hope it is introduced at the earliest. There is a Digital India Act, a DIA, that is being worked on basically to supersede the IT Act of 2000. Then there is a telecom bill, which is presently being processed within the government. That is to overtake the Telegraph Act of 1885. So, and then there are some other regulations that are being discussed. So, from the international to the national, then we've come down to the corporate level. I've told you of the measures that have to be taken. You have to address the entire ecosystem. So, the endpoint, the network, the cloud, because a lot of people are using cloud services today. How do we ensure security of the data that lies in the cloud, and how do we ensure security of the data in transit between your enterprise and the cloud, and finally the application. So, as I said, there are a large number of measures. You have to invest. You have to invest in cybersecurity. Just this morning, the Reliance Jio platform has given us a presentation on their cybersecurity, how they're implementing it. So I just asked, I said, how many people are working in cybersecurity in your organization? And he says 1,500. So there are 1,500 people who are only looking at cybersecurity. They are not the guys who are implementing IT. And that is very important for you to learn, that in any organization, the IT people have to be separate from the cybersecurity people. Otherwise, you can't have judge and jury and, same guy. So you have to have, you can have a CISO, and under CISO there is, of course, the SOC and the cybersecurity personnel, but IT has to be separate. And then the audit is very important. So you have to undergo twice a year internal audit, where you continuously do your VAPT tests, etc. And then once a year, the annual audit, because this is something that we found is lacking. Since you have to pay for the audit, you only tick the minimum boxes and say, I've done my audit. That won't happen. It's at your expense. And the financial sector, I find, are very strict, because for them it is important. I can give you an example of an insurance company which came under a ransomware attack. Its value was about $10 billion US. After the ransomware, everything got encrypted. Their client data, their all the agreements they had with the clients, etc., and their policies, everything, every data was encrypted, including their disaster management side. So literally from 10 billion, they came down to $0. And there was no way, they just paid the ransom. So before this situation comes, you must take this very seriously, invest in security, because the future, once 5G comes, I'm only talking of the IT part, the OT part will also become very important, the operations technology. Today there are, let's say, about 5 billion internet users, with 5G being rolled out at the pace at which it is being rolled out. we expect this number to go to 25 billion by the end of, say, this year or next year definitely. Because the IoT devices, which also have an IP address, basically it's just any endpoint with an IP address, they will get connected to the 5G network. So for 5 billion, the threat surface is going to become 25 billion. And this is the environment in which all of you will be operating. So don't ever compromise on the security part. The three hard truths of cybersecurity are that vulnerabilities will continue. As long as we believe in digitalized systems, and you know what has happened after COVID, everything, whether it's education or health or governance or your enterprises, everything depends on digital. So as long as there is software and hardware, there will be vulnerabilities. That is the first hard truth. The second is, if there are vulnerabilities, cyber attacks will take place. And the third is, the attribution of the cyber attacks will be as difficult as what it is today. I'm glad the IAMI has taken some initiatives on this because one of the biggest threats is the endpoint, your mobile phone itself. And for that, we have Colonel Satyendra Verma here. He's created a very good project called iCamps, the Indian Citizens Assistance for Mobile Privacy, where he's trying to make the job easier for you, and especially for those in the tier 2 and 3 cities, that you will keep getting a notification in the language of your choice as to what are the threats in your mobile phone. It will check all the apps and then tell you, will raise some red flags, etc. So my compliments for the iCamps project. And I would also advise the IMI that in all your 17 sectors that you have, whether it is health, etc., do carry out an internal audit of these sectors. And then you can share notes, and you'll be surprised to find that, you know, there are so many common points that you have as far as cybersecurity is concerned. So let me summarize what I have discussed with you today. We started off from a Chinese balloon view of the cyberspace, and I told you that there is a splinter net that is looming. There are lack of international laws in cyberspace, and there is a lack of attribution, which is basically favoring the criminals. So in this environment, at the national level, we are taking a large number of steps, starting from protecting our critical sectors and protecting our the cybercrime aspects, as well as on the regulation and the policy sides. And for the companies, I have said that you have to invest in cybersecurity. The ballpark figure earlier used to be 10% of your IT assets. I would recommend it to be a little more than that, since if you have to make a start, it has to be a little more than that. And take advantage of the free tools that are available. One has to be very careful about even open source. There are a lot of stories about using open source and how some malware is embedded in them. With that, let me end by saying that in the post-COVID digital world, there are only two mantras for survival: personal health and cyber hygiene. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
The General has kindly agreed to take a few questions, but 2 questions. So, sir, do I have the privilege of asking the first one? So I'll ask one. You can think of another question to ask of him. I actually have 5 questions, sir. I don't know how to summarize them into one question. So one is generally the concern that are we prepared for 5G related security, which you hinted in your talk. The second one is what can we as citizens do to enhance cybersecurity? What's our role? And the third one is, sir, we are creating a lot of this digital public infrastructure, and they're all being built on open source. So what is the, are they safe, secured, and all of that?
So 5G, I have covered. Let me tell you that the architecture of 5G as approved by the ITU is actually safer than 4G. Because where earlier there was, let's say, 128-bit encryption, now it is 256. There is a concept of network slicing. In fact, that entire concept of, the core and the RAN. So architecturally, 5G has been designed to be safer, technically. But I mentioned about IoT. So this is where, the vulnerabilities come in. You may be aware that today I can use a camera, a surveillance camera, for carrying out a DDoS attack. In fact, a camera is the best source for me because it generates a large amount of data, let's say in GBPS, etc. So I just take that data and push it somewhere else and carry out a distributed denial of services attack. So cybersecurity has to be seen in all the aspects of people, process, and technology. And if I can leave one acronym with the audience today, just remember this acronym for PowerPoint: people, process, and technology. So people means there are two types of people. One are the people who are the users. They have to develop good cyber hygiene, which implies updating your software, passwords, being very careful in social media, etc. The other type of people are the skilled workforce. The workforce, that means the cybersecurity people. They have to be continuously trained and ensured that what they are doing, because a person sitting in a security operations center has to continuously see the logs. So unless he's trained for that, there's no point having a SOC unless I'm just giving an example. So in the people, these, education, awareness, etc. comes in that. In the process, you have to have your crisis management plans. Whatever network there is, 5G or whatever, 6G will come. So you have to have audits, crisis management plans, have SOPs, cyber capability maturity models. So various processes are there, who gets what privileges. And finally is the technology. That has to be utilized from the cybersecurity spectrum point of view that I mentioned, from the endpoint right up till the highest layer. So with all these measures, one can implement cybersecurity. Thank you.
Questions from the audience, please? We just have 2 seconds left, so quickly.
Yes, ma'am. We'll just pass the mic to you.
Yeah, Sir, Dr. Gela told us that they are going to look into AI, ML, using AI, ML to avoid scams and frauds. So, but I think, like, if you must already be working on it, that AI, ML itself is it could cause frauds and scams. So we need to have a 360 angle approach to that. So I hope you are taking good note of that, because it's really coming up so much. Not only ChatGPT, there's so much now, so much content out there, and every day a new, so many AI sites are coming up, and so many applications are coming up. So we really have to catch up soon, I think, and can't wait for committees and all, It has to be done soon. Thank you.
You're absolutely right. You have asked a question and answered it also. We can't wait for committees. So there are various programs at different level, National AI program and etc. But AI, as you rightly said, works both ways. So while it helps us, I gave the example of a security operations center. Today, there are terabytes of logs being generated from all the, the network firewall, your servers, and whatever devices you have. And you cannot humanly see those logs and find out, which is the wrong one. So that is where AI comes in. I'm just giving one example. But it also helps the attacker. Now, he knows your system and he's able to manipulate and behave like your system and get inside or something. So it is, a game of wits, which definitely is at the top of our minds. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I have a question for Sir. So first of all, thank you so much for sharing those data points and making us aware of the threat that lurks around. This is primarily for small businesses which have just started getting into the digital realm, right? They've just started digitizing themselves. Abhi to ek padav un logon ne cross kiya hai, and this next that's waiting for them is the cybersecurity challenges. While you shared how Reliance, etc., the giants, the governments are prepping themselves, how do you think small businesses, which are millions in numbers, right, and who in many ways lack capabilities, can prep themselves for this threat?
So I gave you one reference of a CD that I released in CII about 2-3 months back. It's called the Cyber Suraksha Kavach. You can go to the CII portal. It is a free tool that is available to you for cybersecurity. In cybersecurity, there are two ways of going about it. You can have services or you can have products. So there are these people who are giving managed cybersecurity services. There are various, they are not very expensive also. You can take their services, or you can transport your system to the cloud And there are some excellent cloud service providers today who provide you security, including identity access. Then the responsibility becomes theirs. So there are these sort of options, and of course, you can have your own enterprise and get some good guys, but I told you, keep the IT guy away from the cybersecurity. Thank you.
Certainly, thank you.
This is written, my time's up in
Yes,
red.
thank you very much, sir, as always, for being with us today.
Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. And